You are Locked On Giants POSTCAST. Part of Locked On Sports New York on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, different day, much different result. Big Blue into the win column. The Giants go into Cleveland, handle the Browns. Final score 21-15. Big Blue gets their first win of the season. Finally, they're now 1-2, and it comes at the absolute perfect time. A short week. We'll get to that. Of course, the Cowboys on Thursday, but a 21-15 victory. Giants into the win column. All right, hello, everybody. I'm Jay Berman. If you're a New Yorker, you might recognize my work. If not, let's get the chance to know each other. I've spent more than 2 decades in the biz, everything from TV to web to radio. You can follow me on X at Jay Berman. That's Jayberman. Welcome to the Locked On Giants POSTCAST, both on the Locked On Sports New York YouTube channel and the Locked On Giants podcast feed. The POSTCAST gives you a place to hang out after every single Giants game. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. We'll discuss everything Malik Neighbors, who quite honestly got to be a top 5 receiver in the league already. He's an absolute difference maker. We'll certainly chat Neighbors. Daniel Jones with a second consecutive solid performance. Deep dive into the quarterback's day coming up. We'll, of course, discuss the defense, which finally, this time, forced turnovers and made big stops. All right, all that coming up on the POSTCAST. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, we are off and rolling after a 21-15 win for the Giants. Things could not have started worse. Eric Gray fumbles the opening kickoff, and you figured, here we go. It's the first takeaway for the Browns this season. It's the first time since 2013 that they lost an opening kickoff. It's also the first defensive takeaway for Cleveland. That came in the third quarter when Devin Singletary fumbled. So again, 2 huge fumbles. The fumble by Gray was followed up on the first play from scrimmage. Watson to Cooper, excellent catch in the end zone. 11 seconds in, it's the first time the Browns have scored on the first play from scrimmage since 2005. And just like that, 11 seconds in, the Giants were in a 7-0 hole. Head in hand at that point, figuring more of the same from the Giants. But instead, from that point on, at least for the next 3 quarters, the rest of the first, the second, and the third, we'll get to the fourth, but those 3 quarters right in the middle, the Giants played well on all sides of the ball. All right, as we told you, we have some firsts to get to. We'll do that coming up. First, let's discuss some stats as well. As we said, Daniel Jones, 24 of 34, 236, and 2 touchdowns, both to Malik Neighbors. And we told you, we'll get to Neighbors coming up. 8 catches for 78 yards and 2 touchdowns for Neighbors. Devin Singletary, yet another fumble. The sure-handed Singletary now has 2 in a couple of weeks, and they were big ones. He had 16 rushes for 65 yards. Quite slick at the end there to get down before the end zone. Obviously, you'd love for him to score a touchdown at that point, but no need. He takes the knee short of the goal line, and the Giants can close things out. Again, 21-15. Deshaun Watson, 21 of 37. He did throw 2 touchdowns, both to Amari Cooper. Cooper had 7 catches for 86 yards and 2 touchdowns. We talked about all those firsts. Let's get to it. All right, the first play from scrimmage, as we said, 11 seconds in. The first time the Browns scored on the first play from scrimmage since 2005. The first half was without a doubt the best half of football for the Giants in nearly 2 years. If you recall, we're going to wipe away now last season. Then the last time the Giants played as well as they did in a complete half really was the Vikings playoff game from early last year. All right, as we said, the first takeaway for the Browns this season. It was also their first defensive takeaway when Singletary fumbled. So lots of firsts to get to. Now let's get to Malik Neighbors. And you saw what kind of difference maker Neighbors can be. The first 50-50 ball that he ripped away from the defender turned out to be a 28-yard pickup, and they were well on their way at that point. And obviously the touchdown to cap off the drive, and then obviously the touchdown at the end of the first half. Neighbors is the first player, as we get back to the firsts, Neighbors is the first player in NFL history with 20 receptions and 3 receiving touchdowns in their first 3 games in NFL history. All right, more firsts and a lack thereof for the Browns in the first half. They recorded just 5 first downs. That's after scoring 11 seconds in. Really an amazing turnaround for both the Browns offense, which went from awesome on one play to really terrible the rest of the way, and for the Giants defense. Obviously, they were stung by the fumble to open the game. Then they were stunned by the throw and the reception for Cooper in the end zone, but they settled down after that. The Giants finished with 7 sacks. Count them up, 7 sacks. And the best part about that is the last time they were in Cleveland was 2016, late November, just after Thanksgiving. That's the last time they had 7 sacks in a game. How about that? All right, obviously some mishaps as well for the Giants. Greg Joseph, who just signed this week, missed a 48-yard field goal that would have put it away. Now, obviously, the Giants do go on to win, but they're having kicking difficulties. It's something that obviously Brian Daboll needs to get right. Didn't get it right last week when he decided to go with Graham Gano, who was clearly hobbled. And that cost him a game against Washington, or at least a chance to win a game. They lost by 3. They missed an extra point and blew 2 two-point conversions. But back to this week. The Giants in the second half punted on 5 consecutive possessions. They were just unable to close things out. And the only way they did was the defense forcing a turnover. And the Giants were able to, at that point, put the Browns in a situation where they could not come back. Again, 21-15. How about the Giants' rushing defense, which was so bad for the first 2 weeks? Really against Washington, over 200 yards rushing for Washington. Well, under 100 yards rushing today for the Browns. In fact, just 69, a 3.3 average. So kudos to the Giants' run defense, who played quite well. As we said, good awareness there by Devin Singletary late to get down without scoring. It enabled the Giants to run out the clock and win the game. If you have Devin Singletary on your fantasy team, so be it. We wanted to win. We got the win. Giants 21-15. As we said, Daniel Jones, he finished the first half with just 2 incompletions. And how about this? His 17 completions in the first half, a career high for any 2-quarter stanza in his career. The Giants in the first half really impressed, from defense to offense to special teams. We were impressed with that first scoring drive. Really, it sort of slowed down the pace of the game. The Browns had all the momentum. The first scoring drive took over 8 minutes. That included that 4th down conversion, the early 4th down conversion, which, to be fair, reeked of desperation from Daboll. Hey, you got to win. Do what you have to do to win, especially if you're desperate, and I believe he was, which is why he went for that 4th down 7. Anyways, the longest drive time-wise for the Giants since the Minnesota playoff game 2 seasons ago. That was also the last time they played a full game, which resulted in a complete performance, if you will. And the Giants got that done today. As we said, Malik Neighbors was a stud. The defense was good. Daniel Jones, for the second straight week, not the reason the Giants lost the game. In fact, one of the reasons they won today, and it certainly wasn't his fault they lost to the Commanders in Washington. He played pretty well. So Daniel Jones, yeah, there was a few shortcomings there specifically in the second half. But again, Daniel Jones is not the problem. There really wasn't any major problem with the exception of the kicking. Again, Giants need to probably bring in another kicker. Not sure if Greg Joseph endeared himself to anyone today. Would have ended the game. Anyways, we will take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about a few key drops. Almost again, it's as if the Giants tried to blow it, but they hung on and got the job done. Again, we'll talk about those key drops late in the fourth quarter we want to dissect, and we'll do exactly that next. All right, football is finally back, which means it's time to order your favorite game day food, snacks, and drinks on DoorDash without missing a play. There's nothing better than some wings. And by the way, I'm a ranch guy, no blue cheese, and I'll take the carrots instead of celery. No celery. You know, I'm getting them delivered with DoorDash, and you can too with this code just for Locked On listeners. Use promo code LOCKEDFALL24. That for 50% off when you spend $15 or more on your first order. That's good for up to $10 off. It's a limited time offer, and it's not valid for orders containing alcohol. DoorDash, your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to order your game day favorites. All right, Giants win it. Again, final score 21-15. The Giants are now 1-2, staring at a Dallas game on Thursday night, a short week. Giants again have the Thursday nighter at home. The Cowboys taking on the Ravens this afternoon. Obviously, we'll keep our close attention there. A few other players worthy of mention. Wan'Dale Robinson had a pretty good game. He did have a key drop. We'll get to that for both Wan'Dale and Malik Neighbors. Key drops in the fourth quarter that we don't want to see. Neighbors, of course, had the huge one in Washington. Another one here, not quite as damaging, but the Giants really tried to give the Browns one last chance. And the Browns really just couldn't get out of their own way. And the Giants win it 21-15. By the way, not exactly sure why Kevin Stefanski went for 2 on the second Cleveland touchdown. That made it 21-15. Point is, if you miss it, it's 21-13, and then you need the 2-pointer just to tie. Nitpicky, glad he did it because it, the Browns didn't win is basically the point. So the Browns are undefeated, or at least were undefeated, 8-0 in the last really 3 years, when allowing fewer than 22 points. That was the best in the NFL. Guess what? Now they're 8-1 over the last 3 seasons, allowing 22 points or fewer. That's right. Giants scored 21 quickly, and they go on to win 21-15, the final score. All right, as we said, 21-15, Eric Gray started the game with a fumble. Didn't see much of him after that. We did see Tyrone Tracy, looks like, including the fumble, as a reason why we saw a little bit of Tracy there as well. Obviously, Brian Daboll trying to mix things up. Singletary probably isn't a 30 rush guy anyways. But again, we will see some Tracy and eventually Gray when he gets back into the good graces of the coaches. All right, as for that defense, Brian Burns finally showing up. No more was Brian Burns on the field today questions. Finally makes a play, turns into the Neighbors' second touchdown. By the way, Burns should have also had a pick on the Browns' first possession of the second half. So he played well. As we said, the last time the Giants had 7 sacks in a game, it's the last time they were in Cleveland. 2016, just after Thanksgiving, late November 2016. That was a Giant win. Today was a Giant win. We talked about those key drops late in the fourth quarter from both Wan'Dale and Neighbors, and that needs to be cleaned up. There's just no excuse for that. It's going to burn a team at some point. By the way, after that first play touchdown, just 11 seconds into the opening stanza, the Browns did not run a play in Giants territory the rest of the first half. So kudos to the defense. And by the way, speaking of the defense, the Browns had just 5 total first half first downs. So Giants defense, which looked like it tried to give the Browns a break in the second half, really showed up for the middle part of the game. The latter stages of the first quarter, all of the second and most of the third. Excellent stuff there from the Giants. All right, we talked about those key drops for Neighbors and Wandale. We also have to talk about another Devin Singletary fumble. Now, he did make an incredibly bright play late in the fourth quarter to get down before scoring a touchdown. Of course, we want the touchdown, but we want the win more. Gets down, that leaves the Browns no time to score. That, in effect, ended the game. If he scores that touchdown, well, that would make it 28-15. And then, although incredibly unlikely, it still gave the Browns a chance. By him going down on the 1 yard line, Giants were able to run out the clock, thus giving the Browns no chance whatsoever. So a smart play there by Singletary. An interesting day for him. As we said, 65 yards on the ground, 43 of them on that run. Almost took it to the house. But again, an excellent complete victory for the Giants, 21-15, the final score. They're now 1-2. And boy, would you like to have last week back, wouldn't you? Staring at 2-1 heading into that Dallas game. Instead, it's 1-2. The Eagles pulled out a miraculous win over the Saints in New Orleans earlier today as well. So they are now 2-1. All right, again, 21-15, the final score. Daniel Jones, 24-34. 236 yards and 2 touchdowns. More importantly, no interceptions, didn't rush much. I do want to touch on Jones, his ability to run outside of the pocket. We know it's there. The problem is it still feels like he's a step slow. Now, he was never a burner. It just feels like he's not completely recovered from that ACL. And it's only been a year. The injury took place in November in Vegas against the Raiders. So it hasn't even been a year. It's been 10 to 11 months. So we'll have to wait and see if Daniel can regain that spark running wise. They did call his number on that keeper, if you will, several times. We used to seeing that more from the Giants and Brian Dable's offense, but we did see it several times today. And it's just a point I made in my mind that I wanted to bring to you. And that is that Daniel Jones, quite frankly, seems slow. Again, never a burner, never super fast, but he seems slow for Daniel Jones. Hopefully that won't burn them against the Cowboys on Thursday. Again, a real tough, short week. Malik Neighbors, as we said, is an absolute stud. There are obvious wide receivers you'd take before him. There's Justin Jefferson, there's Tyreek Hill, and so on and so forth. But what you saw today, even when he wasn't making catches, he was targeted, he was double teamed, and he was roughed up at the line of scrimmage. And he still made an incredible impact on the game. As we said, 12 targets, 8 catches, 78 yards, 2 touchdowns, both excellent grabs. And again, the Giants win it 21-15. All right, thank you for making FanDuel a big return. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season on FanDuel. That's America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. That when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Again, FanDuel.com. All right, again, we are back. The Giants are now 1-2 after a successful road trip. We finally put one in the win column. As we said, they beat the Browns 21-15. Daniel Jones had an excellent first half, just 2 incompletions. His 17 completions total in the first half was a career high. And as we said, the Giants were behind the 8 ball early. Eric Gray muffs the opening kickoff. The very next play, technically the first play from scrimmage, a touchdown pass from Deshaun Watson to Amari Cooper. And you figured, as we said, head in hand. What is going to happen next? Well, I'll tell you what happened next. A very impressive drive for the Giants. An 8-minute drive that included a 4th down conversion in their own territory, which of course is risky. We spoke about Dable showing desperation there. And to be quite honest, I've thought about it a lot. He should have been desperate, despite the fact that it was the first quarter, should have absolutely been desperate. Anyways, they got the conversion on fourth down. The nearly 8-minute drive was the longest drive time-wise since the Minnesota playoff game. How about that? And again, the Giants turned things around in that first half, and a lot of credit has to go to Daniel Jones. Did not make any mistakes today, did not turn the ball over, did not fumble, and the offensive line held up. Now, it looked like the Browns would overtake and overpower that Giants offensive line early, but you know what? The Giants, they played okay. They got back into the good graces of the fans with a big win, 21-15. And again, the good, Devin Singletary. The bad, Devin Singletary with the fumble. The good, Jamie Gillian, the punter. He had a pretty good game, actually, today. A few big bombs. The bad, Greg Joseph, the kicker. Yes, he made his extra points, but he missed a field goal that would have put this one out to pasture for the Giants. Instead, they had to win it several minutes later. All right, the good. Brian Burns, finally not invisible anymore. And no disrespect to Brian, but his first two games were less than stellar. He finally made a play, turned that play into a Neighbors touchdown, the second for Neighbors of the day. And he should have also had a pick on the Browns' first possession of the second half. Deshaun Watson, who started very slow, and if you were anywhere near X at any point during this game, there were a lot of calls for Jameis Winston to replace Deshaun Watson. To be honest, I didn't think that at that point in time because the offensive line for Cleveland was so bad, like a sieve, so bad that it was hard to blame Watson. Watson finished the day 21 of 37, $196, and 2 scores, both to Amari Cooper. So he played pretty well, actually. Cooper had 7, 86, and 2. And Ford, Watson, Foreman, and Winston combined for, again, just 69 yards on the ground. So an excellent day for that Giant run defense. As we said, the Browns are no longer undefeated in the last 3 seasons when allowing fewer than 22 points. That was the magic number. Giants got to 21. You figured there's no chance of staying under 22. And they did, but they won. 21-15, the final score. Thank you for making Locked On Sports your first listen today. Now, for your second listen, go find the new Locked On NFL with 2 shows every day. First, the madman Tyler Rowlands kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso, and then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And also, before we get out of here, have to mention our partner in crime over at Locked On Giants. That's Patricia Traina. She handles all the stuff again at Locked On Giants. She's the best. Follow, subscribe, and enjoy. 21-15, the final score. Excellent day from Devin Singletary. Excellent day from Daniel Jones. As good as it gets from Malik Neighbors. Even the defense showed up. 7 sacks for the first time since they last played in Cleveland, November 27th, 2016. So the defense showed up as well. A complete performance, good enough to get the Giants back into the win column for the first time this season. They're 1-2, and as we said, they'll face the Cowboys Thursday night at MetLife. It should be fun. Once again, I'm Jay Berman for the Locked On Giants Postcast. We'll see you next week.